I'm Colin Walker, interim QEP coordinator, and essentially today we're gonna talk about the course application endorsement process, and we're also going to speak about the seed grant process because we have sort of combined these into a fully online process. But I'll talk you guys through that a little bit of what it looks like for this upcoming semester. So with the EL endorsements, it is for both course activities and programs. One of the most important things to remember is that your entire class doesn't have to be experiential learning. It's just kind of looking at a specific activity. Some people, their entire class might be experiential learning, but you don't have to have that pressure on that. We do ask that if you are trying to apply for more than one course, to do separate applications for each one of the respective courses. That will help out a bit. And then as you see, we've moved to a fully online application, which I believe, I think, Lorena, did you start an application yet? I can't recall.
No, I haven't started yet. I'm just kind of, I applied for one of the programs, but not this specific program for endorsement.
Okay. Well, the way it'll work is it'll be a fully online process where you all can, you can go in and start it. And if you don't finish it, it will automatically send you all back a link for you to go back in. And I'll try to kind of show you a little bit of that later on as well. So essentially what I'll do is I'm going to walk through the application. And what I would recommend to everybody before you think about applying, work on writing up all this stuff, and then that way you can just kind of copy and paste it into the document. With the application, it's going to first ask for your name as the principal instructor or program coordinator. It's also going to ask about course prefixes and numbers because when you do the experiential learning endorsement, if it's improved, then it's going to go through the registrar's office so that it gets coded as such. CRNs, if applicable, number of credit hours, the terms and length of the activity. That's going to help with me being able to check in with you in the future. If, let's say, you do a class that is fall and spring, that way I need to know, hey, I need to contact you toward the end of fall for spring to get that right number so that you get credit for both those semesters. So we'll have that. So the three goals for the QEP efforts are focused on research and creative inquiry, global citizenship, and then servant leadership and community engagement. The goal is for the activities to meet at least one of the goals. This isn't a scenario where like putting more than one goal is going to give you extra credit. We just want to get at least one of those three goals. I don't think I've seen anybody meet more than two goals so far through this. So, and we'll kind of go through some of these different activities and what they could potentially look like. As many of you have likely seen through the QEP website or through the social media efforts, we speak about the experiential learning cycle developed by David Kolb all the time. And that basically defines an activity according to the 4 stages of concrete experience, followed by reflective observation, moving over to abstract conceptualization, and then finally going to active experimentation. And then in most instances, this cycle just keeps going on and on throughout your course over and over and over again, depending on the nature of it. So we'll look at some examples of what that could look like. So first off, concrete experience. So there's a lot of different forms that this can take. So you see a large list of activities there that you potentially do. In a lot of instances, it might be exposing your students to a specific experience first that you're hoping they learn from when you eventually ask them to do maybe the same type of activity or something similar to it. So an example of that I actually took from one of my own classes. So I teach a class here at VSU that they produce a lot of athletic media productions for the university. So our concrete experience starts with observations, where I ask the students to shadow a game production that's done by another crew. So they're getting exposed to the environment. They're being given prompts of what they should be trying to observe at each point of time throughout the event. And then after that, I end up asking them to journal about it with guided prompts. So that way I can kind of see what did they learn, what did they take away from that experience. So that would be the form of reflective observation. And it could be as simple as journaling, but some people will do kind of maybe a think, pair, share as well. Especially if you have a larger class, you might want to do something like that to help for kind of assessment purposes and for your students to kind of learn from one another. So kind of going back to the example there, where if I had all 16 of my students shadowing a production, it would look gigantic. So normally what I do is say to the students, hey, go to maybe one of these 3 productions. So their think, pair, share is them kind of grouping up and talking about, oh, what happened at the soccer game you shadowed? What happened at the baseball game you shadowed? What happened at the softball game you shadowed? And that allows for a lot of good cross-pollination of ideas. And I have them talk about what they saw that went well, but I also talk about, well, based on that, what could you do better if you were the person in that particular role? So that's led to some good constructive discussions amongst the students. So you see there some examples of prompts that I have the students do. I ask for them to write their reflections within 1 week because I think it's really important that you get that written down very quickly. So that way it's nice and fresh in their minds. But we keep those prompts fairly broad for folks just in case they maybe come up with their own ideas of things along the way. So the next step after that is moving into what's called abstract conceptualization. And this can look a little different depending on the activity that you're doing in your respective course. In some ways, it could be that they are kind of reflecting on the observation process and figuring out how can they apply that to maybe a project you're asking them to do. So it could be as something where they're writing up some sort of project proposal type thing where they're trying to give you ideas as the instructor of, hey, this is what I want to do in my project. And that way you have an opportunity to maybe guide them to maybe a certain path, or say, hey, you're doing awesome, maybe add these 1 or 2 things, and it could be stellar, the work that you are doing. You could also have model construction as well, maybe even just kind of sequencing events over time. So there's a lot of different forms that this can end up taking for your given course activity. So you see here, the way this would work with the item that we were just speaking about was I kind of do it through a think, pair, share activity, but I also do what I call pregame meetings with my students where they basically explain, hey, this is what their responsibility is going into a particular event where I may have assigned them a particular role, like a camera operator, or maybe they're operating graphics, or they're announcing the game. And I do this for a couple different reasons. First, it's make sure everybody kind of knows what they should be doing responsibility-wise, but it also kind of helps build some confidence among the students that they can kind of hold each other accountable for them doing their certain actions. Because with a production, I always like to describe it as a domino effect, that if everybody does their job, the dominoes are all going to stand up. But if somebody doesn't do their jobs, the dominoes just begin to fall, and it's just a question of how far are they going to fall. So the students have had a lot of great reactions with this, with some of the feedback that they've given me. And then the active experimentation, this is them typically going out there, they're actually doing the thing, doing the project. If let's say it's a lower level class, it might be that they're doing just a simulation in a way where you might say, hey, my freshmen and sophomores, I don't want to expose them to working with, let's say, a big organization in the community. So you might have a simulation in a controlled environment, a little bit safer for them to make mistakes, and can kind of keep that confidence level up for our students. So again, as you see, it's in this example, it's kind of field work with the students going out there and actually producing the stuff in a way. And I will say with all of this, if you all go to the QEP website, we have multiple examples here for all of you. So actually, there's a couple different ways to get to it. You could use the second tab here, or if you scroll down on the page and go to the apply for an experiential learning endorsement for a course activity or program, if you click there and scroll down, you'll see that we've made examples. These are all previously approved applications. So we have some from the sciences, some global citizenship, some creative production, some art-based things. And I'll be honest, if there's something that you don't see, let me know, because we might have another application that I could share with you. That way you kind of see a guide of what other people have done in the past for a given activity. Let's see, coming back here. So when it comes to the endorsements, there are a few things that we ask you all to agree to doing as the instructors. Aside from obviously facilitating the activity, which of course I think all of you would do, we will ask you to have the students submit written reflections using an instrument that I'll provide to you that's actually posted on the website right now. And essentially it's prompts that line up with each one of the 3 student learning outcomes associated with the quality enhancement plan. You do not have to have your students meet all 3 goals though, to be honest. So they don't have to, the goal is for them to hopefully have like 75% or more successfully meet one of the 3 student learning outcomes along the way. So we ask you all as the instructors to score the written reflections using the rubric within 30 days of when the activity is completed. In a lot of instances, we understand, especially let's say it's a spring semester, or let's say it's a fall semester, that spring semester ends in May, fall semester ends in December. Well, it might be one of those things where I say to you, hey, let's say you made it part of your final exam. I'll say, hey, get it to me by the start of the year. In terms of, let's say it's January. If it was, let's say May, I might say, hey, please get it to me by the start of June. Because the reason why we're going to ask for that is because our faculty ambassadors are going to help kind of look at the evaluations, and they'll kind of look for things, see patterns and things of that nature. So it assists us with data analysis on that. They might also provide feedback to say, hey, you could try maybe this next time. That would be great. Because honestly, with this whole initiative, we want you to get this endorsement. We want to support you through this endorsement. If you don't maybe do it as well as you want to the first time around, we're not going to say, oh, we're not going to just take it away. We're going to try to support you and hopefully make it better the next round. We'll also ask each one of you as the instructors to write a reflection at the conclusion of the activity too. And this is a time to kind of talk about what went well, what could be improved, and how do you plan on doing that? That kind of gives us some positive reinforcements too, where we might say, oh man, what happened with these student reflections? But that will kind of let us know that, hey, you've already thought about that. So again, we're really just trying to support you all along the way. With the online application, it's made this part a little bit simpler, where it's going to ask you about kind of what goals you all are trying to pursue. And then it's actually going to narrow down the questions over time, which is really, really nice. And I'll show you why in just a moment. So it'll maybe ask you, for example, if you're doing service learning, there'll be different increments of time of, oh, is it 10 to 20 hours of service you're having your students do? Or is it 20 to 40 or 50 to 100? If you're putting like 50 to 100, we might ask a question of, hey, what's actually happening in this class? Again, this is not a thing for brownie points or anything. No one's getting preference if they have a higher number of hours. This is more so just for coding purposes. So you see there's numerous categories there, from service learning to undergraduate research or creative inquiry, work-based learning, capstone, or study abroad / study away. Another item that will be asked about is skills, and it'll be asking you just to mark any skills from this pre-prescribed list right here of things that you believe the students might learn as a result of the course. So again, just to show you, you'll see on the application page, before this, I put the one button in red for apply here, but right next to it, I put preview of application. Please look at the preview of the application. What it'll do, this is the hard copy version of it that we tried to make nicer through the online process. So all this is stuff that we spoke about. The part that is going to be nicer for you guys now is right down here. All this stuff, people were kind of getting lost in the application. So for example, if you don't do service learning, you're not even going to see that whatsoever. You're only going to see the part that you selected there. But the majority of the work in the application is going to be focused on each one of those 4 stages. That would be kind of the primary parts of your guys' efforts. So that's why I would recommend work on answering those 4 questions in a Word document and just copy and paste it into the application once you reach that stage. And where you see, for example, select the concrete experience, that's actually just a drop down of all the items that we just spoke about just now. Another thing too, in case you guys forget anything that we're talking about today, if you go to the website and you go to Experiential Learning and go to the guide, it's going to reinforce everything that we just spoke about because it's going to break down the 4 stages. It'll provide you with examples for all of that. So we want to make this as open as possible for all of you because you guys might work on it in the middle of the night when some of us are sleeping. If you're a night owl, for example, as I've discovered, some of our faculty are definitely some night owls. Oops, my bad there. Just did that. All right. Okay, so what happens next? So during the process, you would submit the application online via the Qualtrics survey, which will trigger the second you hit the apply here button. So if you don't wait till the last second, to be honest, I will work on giving you all revisions along the way. So this is a really neat part of the process where if you submit your application, if I see it early enough, then what I'm going to do is provide you feedback. All right. Again, I want you to get this endorsement. All right. So what it'll do is I will provide you feedback and it'll be sectioned off by like different fields. And then I will send you a link back to your application and say that'll have the feedback in the very specific areas. And then basically say, hey, if you guys want to use it, please consider using it. All right. So it'll do that. And then once it's gotten to the point that I think, hey, this thing's ready to go to your department head, it'll begin an online process for all these approvals. So there's no more DocuSign and all that kind of stuff that you all may have heard about in the past. So that part will kind of get automated. And then what will occur eventually is we get together the Experiential Learning Advisory Committee, which Dean Savoy, Dr. Michael Black both sit on, along with some other representatives from across the institution. And they will go through a blind peer review process for each one of the applications. So multiple people are seeing it. When they do the reviews, they don't know who each other are. I'm actually the only one who knows. And then I actually will not be the review part at that part to avoid bias there. And then we'll communicate out the final decisions to faculty once we have them. And then at that point, we will provide materials to all of you, including a pre and post test survey that's already created for all of you, the written reflection instrument, and then also the rubric as well. So any questions about the endorsement part of the process from anybody? Okay.
Colin, I just have a comment. Like for the application,
Yes.
we're only talking like a paragraph for each section. Not pages and pages, just a brief description for each of these areas. So
absolutely. That's why hopefully you saw the size of those text boxes. Try to keep them within the text box if you can. Don't go too much further than that.
No, I have one question, if that's okay. So I'm currently working here, and I work at the mathematics department, and I'm wondering if there is any course endorsed from the math department at the moment. If there's anyone who has gone through the process of course endorsement, just for, if just to kind of talk to them if they have that experience? If not, then I would just start from scratch.
Yeah,
I
Sandy
believe
Trowell.
so. Yeah, Sandy Trowell had the
Sandy.
MG.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, she had, I think it was MGED 3500 and 4500.
Gotcha. All right,
So.
Sandy. I will communicate with her. And I will excuse myself because I will have to go to teach. But I will check information about the grant, the seed one part later on. So thank you so much.
Not a problem. Take care. All right. So, Emily, do you have any questions about the endorsement part?
I guess I'm curious, how long have there been endorsements?
Good question. So we launched this initiative in the fall semester, and then we essentially had the second round this spring. So this is kind of round 3 coming up, because technically we're sort of wrapping up our pilot year of the QEP and kind of moving into, I guess we would call this year 2.
Okay.
So,
and how many courses are endorsed?
So currently for spring 2022, it is 30 course activities, which represents 43 different sections. And then in this past fall, we had 17 course activities, and it was 26 course sections.
Okay.
So we're hoping that number grows. And
then the benefit of endorsement.
Okay, so that's a good one. For you all as instructors, there's probably a couple benefits here. Evidence of effective teaching this is where it's going to come into play, especially the new faculty evaluation models that obviously the university is trying to finalize. We have seen evidence of effective teaching. I believe even a couple of colleges have actually even put experiential learning explicitly into there. But the endorsement would be something that you could list in your tenure and promotion documents. So that would be helpful. Another item that we are working to potentially pilot this summer is having it where these pre and post test surveys, we modified it this semester where there's a question that asks specifically about the instructor. So that way we can generate a report and send it directly to you, so you can decide whether you would like to include that as part of your report. So that way it's not just a one-line endorsement, it's you have numbers to back up what is on there.
And for the students?
For the students, a lot of this is exposing them to kind of more innovative activities that are occurring. One initiative that we are working on is we're trying to create this trailblazer type program, it's going to be called, where essentially we're moving towards hopefully having what's called an experiential learning transcript. This has been done at a couple other universities, including Elon University, where your class activity, if it's endorsed, it would make it so the registrar's office would easily know that information and it could be reflected there. And then another thing that we're trying to do with that initiative is having it where if students have completed a certain number of activities at certain levels, in combination with student life is kind of working on an initiative over there where we may combine efforts where, hey, if they have a certain student life certificate, they've done some endorsed activities on the academic side, then they may receive a medallion of some sorts when it comes to graduation, so that they're being recognized for those efforts. That's something that we're actively working on, hopefully maybe getting it together for this next academic year. But it's definitely something we're striving towards, so that way the faculty are getting the recognition they deserve, the students are getting the recognition they deserve. But it's been a learning process because we kind of didn't really get to go full on with this until I think it was May 10th this past summer.
Right. Now, if I remember right, the QEP, like, students are now required to have experiential learning credits. Is this right, or is this where we're headed?
So the only college to my knowledge that has any sort of policy that is, I'm going to say, being developed, I don't know if it's firm just yet, is I know social sciences and humanities was trying to require experiential learning. but there is not a university-wide quota at the moment. I can say there are other institutions, like, for example, I believe it's University of Georgia, where it's like they are making it where every student has to have at least one experiential learning endorsement. The interesting part about that is that these other institutions are saying that these sort of endorsed activities would not carry to other institutions. And that's actually kind of a nationwide thing that I've noticed while looking at other experiential learning initiatives.
Okay, thank you. Well, you've answered my questions.
Awesome. So what I'm going to move into next is the Experiential Learning Seed Grant application. So we're going to be asking that anybody who is applying for a seed grant application, that they apply for an endorsement for a course activity first, to make sure that we are giving grants to endorse activities. And honestly, the goal at the end of the day with the seed grant, this is to be purchasing and funding resources for students. It's not the faculty research seed grant. So that's kind of the big differing thing that we have happening here. So the way that this is going to work with the seed grant initiative is after you complete your experiential learning course endorsement application, you will receive a question that's going to say, would you like to apply for a seed grant? And it provides you answers of yes, start it right now, or the next one is, hey, we can start it up later. And I will just continue this for the sake of the recording. If you'll want to finish it up later on, it'll send them a link. The goal to offset project costs associated with experiential learning activities here at Valdosta State and assist faculty and staff in implementing such activities. For awards, it's a single award, $4,000 award that can be utilized across 2 terms. The funds, essentially, if you are awarded them, they could be deployed as early as the start of May this year. So we would have that. And we'll have separate calls each semester for that. Eligibility will be all tenure track and tenured faculty, full-time staff, full-time lecturers as well, and they can be done in an individual or a collaborative manner. Any collaborative application should only be with other VSU faculty and staff members. It cannot be across institutions as of this time. The goals, once again, it's going to ask you to line up your seed grant with at least one of the 3 goals. Again, you can do more than one goal if it's applicable for your given project. Also, we want to meet at least one of the 3 student learning outcomes. The first student learning outcome being that we want students to be able to reflect how they develop knowledge, skills, and values as a direct result of the experiences outside a traditional academic setting. That does not mean it can't occur in a classroom, though. It's just talking about kind of traditional academic settings, really kind of that classic lecture style, versus having it where the students might be doing some sort of experiential learning activity, maybe a sort of a simulation inside of a classroom environment. Second goal being having the students describe how they took initiative, made decisions, and how they are also held accountable as a direct result of the experiences during the activity. And the final goal, students being able to reflect how they grew and developed intellectually, creatively, emotionally, socially, or physically as a result of the experiences outside the traditional academic setting. We have some samples of funding project ideas, including offsetting some expenses for a Russian language course where they went to Jacksonville and were kind of immersed in elements of the Russian culture. We have some offset expenses for students that travel to the Okefenokee to collect water samples. We also had a project where students were going out to 1 Mile Creek and other areas and actually using GoPro cameras to record content. So if you have ideas, please let us know. Even if you're not sure, that's when you send an email to qep@valdosta.edu, and we are more than willing to work with you and just kind of bounce ideas as needed. There's a list of allowable expenditures here. As you see, travel could be part of it. supplies and materials that are not traditionally funded by your department, contractual services that may be needed, telecommunication costs. So we have some different things listed here. And again, these are listed on the application and on the website as well. As you see, ineligible activities, faculty development, that's not really the goal here. We're more focused on the students for this initiative. We don't want the projects to be profit-oriented. We don't need it to be consulting services or institutional research or trying to meet thesis or dissertation requirements. Again, a lot of these would fall into the Faculty Research Seed Grant side of things, which is a different pot of money here at VSU. And you see even more lists here of ineligible expenditures. Again, we're just trying to make sure you know what to not be applying for with this. And as you see, we have a formal review process. It is done through again, a blind peer review. These are the criteria that we give for evaluating each one of these applications among the committee. As you see here, there's a list of application documents. Each one of these application documents is actually attached as a digital draft on the QEP website, which I can show you in just a moment. But I would recommend completing all this information prior to starting the online application. So again, you can just copy and paste it right into the document. Again, the online application is going to expedite your work process. It's also going to expedite the review process as well. So this is a win-win situation for everybody. And again, I want to thank Brian Fitzgerald and CELT for assisting with developing that application because it was a lot of hard work. Right before I talk about the deadlines, I should show you the website for the seed grant application process. So if you're on the QEP website, go to the second tab, you'll see seed grant. And this is where you'll see each one of the application documents is found right here for you. We also have 3 examples of applications that were funded as well to help guide you, to give you an idea of projects that were previously funded. So as you can see here for this semester, for this call for applications right now, the deadlines for both the endorsement and the seed grant are going to be March 28th at 5 p.m. This is the week after spring break, so we're making sure we're giving you a week on top of spring break because we didn't want you to be forced to work on this during your spring break. But please, the earlier the better when it comes to submitting these applications. And our goal is going to be to give you all notifications regarding the seed grant application by the end of April, and honestly, just by the end of the semester, because we don't want you all waiting when it comes into summertime.